of bugs to fix this morning.
What's the difference between a bug and an insect?
That's a good question. I always say like an insect is anything like makes noise, or is like creepy crawly, like a spider.
Is that just you making that up, or you actually know that?
Well, I think it's like kingdom, you know, like there's the mammal kingdom, but then there's like lions and like tigers separately. So I say insects are like bugs that are gross and like fly and stuff, and then insects are like things that are like gross and creepy crawly, and then bugs are like also worms and slugs and stuff like that.
What do you know the point in which a microorganism actually becomes a bug?
No, but people call things bugs all the time. Like the COVID is like a bug.
Right, like it's a virus. Is a virus a bug? Like the same, like it's just a really small insect?
I don't know.
Oh, hey.
Good morning. Hey.
Good morning, everybody.
How's it going, guys?
Welcome to our Sunday morning pre-service. My name is Andrew. This is my friend Jake. And we're just figuring out how to fix some bugs in studio.
We are.
As well as that's a reference for something you're going to see later.
Yeah, it's going to be
so
sweet.
Stay tuned for that. Want to welcome everybody who's joined us this morning. If you're joining us for the first time and you're like, wait a sec, who are these guys and what are you guys talking about? This is the time where we just hang out. And we give you a chance to get into our little studio in your living room and get everything connected on your end. And then sometimes, the truth is, things go crazy here. It's like we get all this stuff set up, we press all the right buttons, and then all of a sudden, something happens.
Something's wrong.
So that's what we're doing here. We're getting things set up, and as we get things set up, we want to welcome you. And we want to welcome you to engage with us on the chat, Facebook, and YouTube. We're here, just like you're here, and we want to know that you're here, that things are working on your end, that you're paying attention, so that we can know we're with you. It's kind of like trying as hard as we possibly can to make it feel like church, even though it's not feeling like church still after a year. Still doesn't feel like what it used to feel like.
It doesn't, but it's hard not to when you don't get to see people's faces. It's nice to chat with you guys, but I would really prefer to see your guys' faces.
Much prefer.
Talk to you.
Yeah, can people post pictures of their face on here? I don't think they can.
That's a great question.
But if they post...
Look at all these good mornings.
We got lots of good mornings?
We got lots of good mornings on Facebook.
I'm not even seeing that. Good morning. Who's saying good morning? I want to know.
Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Lena.
Elizabeth's here. Hi, Elizabeth.
Steve. Ashton said snake.
Ooh.
Michelle Leroy. Violet. Haley Green.
Hey, guys.
Sherry.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning,
all
everybody.
All these people saying good morning.
We want to welcome you to this particular Sunday because this is the last of a few different things on this Sunday.
It is.
First, it's the last sermon in the first days part of our first days and last days sermon series. We made it.
Very confusing. You guys don't know what's happening, but we do. Probably, maybe.
Yes. So that's what we're doing this morning as well. This is the last day that Catherine
will be here.
Catherine will be here. She'll be playing violin and singing.
She will be.
She will be here. We'll get a chance to hear from her at the end of the service, and then she flies out. When does she fly out?
She flies out this tonight.
Whoa.
She flies out tonight.
So it's her last day here in the first day of the month of it's the second day of the month.
Is it the second or is it even? No, it's the second.
I don't know.
Ashton said that it's an earthworm, which is a little triggering for me.
A little triggering for you.
It's okay.
We'll get there.
It's okay.
Hey,
I'm fine.
Let's jump into this. This will make sense later, but let's ask. We're doing so. What we've been doing at the beginning during the pre-service has been like a first and last game. And how this works is we give you kind of a category, and you have to choose what your first pick would be and your last pick would be in that category. It's really simple. And so today is first and last, and we need to see engagement. We want to see what you actually think, because there's a hot debate going on here in studio. There's a hot debate going on all week long, and you'll see the reference later. But we want to know, what is the first insect that you would eat live? You'd be like, okay, if I have to eat an insect live, it would be this one. And what is the last insect that you would eat live?
The first insect I would eat cooked, worms. It was surprisingly delicious. You'll learn more about that later.
But live, it's got to be live.
It has to be live.
And it can't just be a single ant. If it's ants, it has to be like
a handful.
A handful.
It's relevant to its counterpart. So ants would be like raisins or something. So you never have one raisin. Yeah, you never have one raisin. You have like a handful of raisins.
Yeah, what would you eat 20 grams of? Yeah. What insect would you eat 20 grams of?
But a cricket would be like a French fry. You just pull one cricket out and eat one French fry.
What would that be? And your last choice? What would be your last choice?
Michelle Sparks Trouton, my mom, says, congratulations, GPI students. Hey. Victoria Strait said none, period. Michelle said nothing. You guys don't know how to play the game.
That's not an option.
Denise Gervais said, first crickets, done it.
Hey.
Last spider.
Ooh, what kind of spider? That's what I want to know. Because you know what I was thinking? You know what? Apparently we eat 3 spiders a year in our
may as well,
sleep.
may as well get it over with.
Whatever.
Knock one
It's
out.
something I do all the time anyway.
And you got to do this, you got to take like the legs and then put the body and then push it in.
That's how it works?
I think. Huh. That makes most sense to me.
I guess so.
That's what I saw Bear Grylls do.
Did he?
Yeah.
Bear Grylls.
Bear Grylls eats stuff all the time.
Speaking of Bear Grylls, he's actually one of the representatives of the Alpha program that we've been doing. So we saw a video of him the other day. I was like, oh, Bear Grylls, he's still around doing awesome stuff, eating bugs.
Yeah,
so.
He's a bug eater.
So what would be your first that you would eat? 50 grams of 20 grams? I
have to say cricket.
You say cricket? Okay.
I think crickets
Why
are like
cricket?
Because to me they seem cleaner than other bugs. They're always above the ground. They're always like on grass and stuff, just like hanging out.
Okay.
They're small and they're kind of harmless. All of their extremities seem very eatable.
Yeah.
Like a spider is like hairy and gross.
Gross, right?
Ants are like, even if you all over. That's I don't want that. Ugh. Cockroaches, you have no idea what's under a cockroach. You can see everything that a cricket has to offer.
Apparently, everybody's agreeing with you. Yeah. Aaron Harris says chocolate-covered cricket first.
I don't know if you can have a chocolate-covered cricket.
Yeah, that was also not an option, Aaron. Thanks for following instructions.
Although I would definitely have I would have a chocolate-covered anything. Really.
I would just do that normally, like not if I was forced to.
Mitch said he'd eat a housefly.
Huh.
But you have to have a handful of houseflies.
That's 20 grams of houseflies?
They're like an almond. Ooh. That's like a few almonds.
That's like my compost bin on a weekly basis. Not that fun. Not that fun.
All of them.
Yeah, I was thinking, first, I was thinking cricket, but we'll go off cricket. You already said cricket, so it's like, all right, fine. I don't like things that are too crunchy, and I like something I could just swallow it right down. So I would pick something that is slimy, because I wouldn't bite into it. I would just, whoop, and I can, I'm used to swallowing, this sounds terrible, swallowing pills. No, I don't swallow a lot of pills, but there was a time where I burnt my foot and broke my leg in 1 year, and I had a lot of pain medicine. So I got used to being able to just chug a bottle of water and swallow stuff. So I would literally, something slimy that would go down, I would eat that first. Last is praying mantis. I wouldn't want to eat an insect that prays.
Jeez.
Spiritual animals, probably shouldn't be eating them.
No, that's massive. Like a praying mantis, that's a mouthful. Robert Wood said, is Jake wearing a purple velvet shirt? No, he's not. He's wearing a dark blue velvet shirt.
Ooh.
It's velvet. It's corduroy. It's not actually velvet. It's fake, but
it's fancy, is what it
is.
It
is. It's so sick.
Greg's asking, are they cooked? The answer is no. They are not cooked.
Raw.
We can do that after. Cooked insects, sure, we can go there. But we're talking raw, alive. They're alive. They're not even dead.
I'd knock out cooked bugs all day.
Yeah,
pop,
you would.
Pop.
You would. Well, hey, I'm interested to see what people's responses are. Ted said mosquitoes. Thank you for sparing us all the mosquitoes and sacrificing yourself. October said mealworms. Last, she said African cave spider. Is that giant spider that could literally eat you? Is that what she's talking about?
Why would you even let me know that exists?
I don't know. I'm feeling really.
I don't even want to Google it. I'm gonna Google it.
I feel uncomfortable
because I don't want to know, but I have to know.
Speaking of things that we need to know, coming up in just a few minutes is potentially a break for Renew Kids. But it'll happen at a different time today. It'll happen in just a minute is what we're getting. We had some issue with the whole thing crashing. So we do have it up in a minute. Renew Kids break will be up in a minute. And then after that, we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about what happened at Maverick Youth this week on Tuesday.
Yes,
and then we're also going to talk about the Mom Awards. Ooh. The Mom Awards. We're going to talk about it because you need to know the stuff. Because we need you to start submitting stuff so that our moms feel like they're actually loved by our church and not let down. So we're going to talk about that coming up after this short break for Renew Kids. We'll talk in a minute.
You're welcome, Denise. It's over.
My microphone fell off. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around with us. If you're just tuning in, my name is Andrew. This is Jake, and we have the privilege of working here at Renew Church. And what you've tuned into is the pre-service for Renew Church's Sunday morning church live stream.
Yeah.
We've been doing this every week for a long time now, and we're having fun with it. And this is the chance where we hang out. We just chat. We just talk about stuff that happened. We talk about stuff that's coming up. We ask questions like, which live insect would you prefer to eat? And we hear what you have to say about it. Is there any other responses that have come in that are worth noting?
Greg said, mealworms first, cockroaches last.
Is that because their name is mealworms? So you're like, okay, you associate with
mealworm? I found out we'll get to this later, but I found out that you can't eat worms. Worms have parasites in them, raw. You have to cook them.
Maybe that's why you can eat mealworms, because you can eat them raw.
I never even thought about that.
Man, we're going to get to why that's relevant. Before we get to why that's relevant, we wanted to remind all of you who are watching now, and we also want to remind you to remind your friends and your family about what's coming up next Sunday. Guys,
it's huge.
If you have not been paying attention to your calendar lately because every day seems to blend into the next day and you are feeling just totally blah for the last little while, I want to invite you to take a step back, look at your calendar, and remind yourself of what next Sunday is. Because, Jake, what
big
is
day.
Next Sunday?
It's a big day. Huge.
It's huge day.
So big I can't even remember it. I'm just kidding. It's Mother's Day.
It's Mother's Day.
What the heck?
Mother's Day. It's coming up so fast.
The only reason any of you are alive.
Yes, literally.
Literally.
None of you exist
without your mom.
Without your mom. Nobody. And
Zero.
You know what? Worth taking a day to celebrate them.
Yeah, one day. Imagine. One day.
One day in a whole year.
Come on.
Treating your mom like she deserves to be treated.
Come on.
And for those who were around last year, I mean, I don't want to toot our own horn, but we did a pretty fun Mother's Day.
Dope.
It was pretty fun.
Last year I got my mom Birkenstocks.
Did you?
They haven't come in yet, but it's an inside joke with my mom.
Whoops. Last year what we did is we did Mom Awards Part 1, and what we did is say, hey, send in an award that you're nominating your mom for, and we will celebrate her on our live stream.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. We had so many moms to celebrate. We spent like an hour and 20 minutes literally just giving out awards to moms on our Sunday morning live stream. And we thought, you know what? We need to do that again. Why? Because moms are just as important as they were last year.
Absolutely.
But
maybe even more.
Probably even more.
Think about all the new moms this year.
New moms. You didn't get an award last year. Well, guess what? You can get one this year. But this year looks a little different. This year, we are inviting you to submit videos about your mom that could win you an award.
Yeah.
This is going to be a real award show.
Yeah, and you're giving the awards.
You might get an award. Last year, you were giving the awards. This year, what we're inviting you to do is we're inviting you to go to our website, renewchurch.ca, and you will find a link there for the Mom Awards. All the instructions are there.
Scroll all the way down to the bottom.
We have created a few categories of awards, like Best Musical, Best Picture, Best Documentary. We've given out a few different categories of awards for different videos. And what we want to ask you to do is we want to ask you and your family to be creative and send us a 20-second video celebrating your mom or a mom in your life. Send it to us, and we will play it on the live stream, and the best ones will win real, legitimate mom awards this year.
Real fake gold.
We've got real fake gold awards to give out this year.
It's huge.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to spend our whole morning doing that next Sunday on Mother's Day, and you want to tune in with us. And this is a chance for you to invite a mom who you think's awesome, who doesn't get recognized enough. Say, hey, Mom, I'm in the video for you on this live stream, and I just want you to watch it because you deserve to be celebrated worldwide next Sunday morning.
Millions of people will be watching.
Millions of people could
be watching.
That's the reality. This is live. It's open. It's public. Millions of people could watch these moms get awards next Sunday.
But if you're scared of people, then maybe only a couple of people.
So here's all you need to do. You just need a phone or any kind of video camera, camcorder device. And you scroll down and you click video, and you can do a selfie one like this. We can do something like this. Mom, you're the best, and you're the best because you're the best, and you're better than all the rest, Mom, and we love you because of the things that we love about you, Mom.
That was great. That could have been.
It's all it took.
Whoa.
It's all it took.
That was like a rap.
That was a rap.
That was
Passion.
crazy.
That's called passion.
I didn't even want to interject. That was amazing.
There's awards for passion, guys. That's one of the criteria of judging.
Passion.
What you could also do is you could sing your mama song.
You could.
Right? So you could get somebody else to record you singing your mama song.
Mom, you are the bomb. And
14 more seconds.
Great and amazing and beautiful. That's enough. That's enough.
It's only 10 seconds. You got 10 more seconds to say really nice things about your mom, but you can take some time to think about it.
She is summed up in many great words.
Speechless.
Speechless. Thank you for saving me there.
Yeah. So that's all we're asking. And you can be as creative as you want to be about it. And we think it could be really, really fun if you resource your families to be creative about celebrating moms this year. It's going to be a lot of fun. And all moms can be celebrated.
Also,
all videos will be shown next Sunday. Now, we ask 20 seconds max. So be real creative and condense it.
If you're a student and you're watching, I know how capable you guys are with all the Final Cut Pro stuff. Jeremy, Isaiah, Carter, if you guys are watching, you guys can easily win this for your moms.
Easily win this for your moms. Speaking of students, this is the next thing we wanted to tell you about. Something really cool happened here on Tuesday night. Super cool. Coolest thing that's ever happened here on Tuesday night at Maverick Youth. Why don't you set this up? What happened? We got a few minutes here.
So
what happened on Tuesday?
It was one of the most amazing things to ever happen in the history of Maverick Youth. And I wasn't even aware of it. It was crazy. So the senior high girls came in and we did a takeover. So the senior high girls did the pre-show. But without me really knowing what was going to happen, they raised over $900 for Maverick Youth, which was incredible, absolutely mind-boggling. I was speechless. And not only because I was going to throw up, but the way they did that was they had people pay money in order to feed me stuff. And now I was kind of put into a corner here because I was raising money for the youth group, and if I didn't eat this stuff, then the youth group wouldn't get the money. So I had to eat it. Yeah. I had no choice, and so I downed a bunch of gross stuff, and we raised over I think it was $960.
$960 were pledged just for Jake to eat crazy stuff.
The girls did a great job, and they had to eat some gross stuff too.
So check this out. We're going to roll the video so you guys can be a part of this.
Yeah, it's gonna be sweet.
And we want to celebrate the people who supported the cause.
What's the next lyric,
guys? The first person who gets it, right?
I see
But
Anna
first
G.
they spun the wheel.
Yeah, so this is
they would have to eat something, right?
This is the game. So the girls they did a game where they had to guess the rest of the lyrics. And if the girl, if any of the students got it right, then they had to spin and they had to eat something gross.
Or
they
a combination of things.
Yeah, so
or they could win a prize, yeah.
Okay.
And there was also an anti-prize, which was...
Yeah, I got egg. If you went on sorry, I got egg. You'll see all the eggings, don't worry.
Orange juice.
So those are pretty kosher, pretty safe. Orange juice, waffles. Combining them could be kind of gross, but...
Orange juice, pickles and mustard by themselves. Isn't that gross? Orange juice, pickles and mustard, kind of weird. You can see them like going at it, dipping the stuff.
Kind of nasty.
It is kind of nasty. They were playing teams, so the left two girls were senior high, right two girls were junior high. So if the junior high's got it right, then the junior high has to eat.
No, not terrible.
And for those who don't tune in to our Maverick Youth programming on Tuesday nights, this is what your student's missing out on. Look, your student sits and watches this stuff nonstop on YouTube all night long when you think they're sleeping. And so why don't you just have them tune in on Tuesday night with our youth?
The first one sucked. It like went right off. I was trying to keep it on the carp or on the thing. This is
that was vicious.
Yeah,
Nice.
that was rough.
No call. It got on the back.
Yeah, we had to clean that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was
that was one of the roughest eggings I've ever seen.
I almost fell.
You are a champion.
That one hurt.
Here's the reality: if you don't plan fundraisers for the youth, then people plan them in such a way that hurt you.
That was a vicious one.
People are like, you know what?
This wasn't the worst part of the night either.
No, it wasn't.
Here we're getting to the part where.
Jake, you're staying
I'm
here.
Staying, yeah.
Jake. And you had to preach that night, didn't
you?
I
did. After all of this. So here we go. This was for $5.
So Winona pledged $5 for you to eat a lemon.
Yeah, she's already got more money than me.
She does.
The whole
She's rich.
I love lemons.
Do you?
I love lemons.
Oh, see, so that was easy.
Yeah, this was.
Some people that would be hard. Like sour is hard, and eating a whole lemon, you bit into that.
Yeah, I took the whole thing.
Good for you, man. That's respectable. There's a little bit of egg yolk in the bite, but
there was egg yolk in every single thing I ate. So for $10,
Who pledged that?
Oh, Olivia Bifus.
Olivia Bifus pledged $10 for, what is that?
That is apple cider vinegar, and that made me so sick.
And you don't like that. And it doesn't sit well with you.
It does not sit well with me. That made me very sick.
$25 from who?
$25. This was I
Aiden.
have to see it. It was from Aiden. It was a spoon. It was a spoonful of wasabi.
What is it?
Ooh.
Which I like wasabi.
This is
Yeah.
So this wasn't too bad. It was a lot of wasabi though. So my sinuses,
Cleared you
everything
right out.
was like,
Okay.
yeah, cleared right out.
Right.
Just sucked everything down.
pretty strong.
I'm like, he has to say yes every
For
time before he
$50,
opens it, I guess.
it was Mitch.
Consent, folks.
Mitch pledged $50
What is
for an
that?
onion.
So
To,
it's
like,
a
eat an
orange,
onion like an
or
apple?
it's
Eat an onion like an
onion,
apple. Again,
but you
I
have to
do like
eat
onions.
the onion like an apple.
So this wasn't the end of the world. Although it was a lot of onion. I've never eaten that
that
much
was a
onion
good
in my life.
one.
Straight onion.
Yeah.
After eating
Yeah.
apple cider vinegar and wasabi?
No.
Yeah.
Not great.
No, it wasn't.
This is $100 from who?
I thought it was a mushroom. It was so messed up. This is from all of the
Society leaders.
society leaders. Yes.
Society is our young adults
Thanks,
group
Society.
that
Yes,
are all
sardine.
mostly graduates of Maverick Youth, and they pledged $100 for him to eat a sardine.
I was so scared. I was
Oh.
so scared it was gonna be
Not
so
an
gross, and
animal.
it really wasn't that bad, but it was still disgusting to think
$250.
about.
Who was that
What is
from?
This is from. I wasn't told who this is from actually. I
It's
was
from
just
Renew
told
Group leaders in
that's all I knew,
Milton.
Yeah,
Shout out to Tarsicius, Ross, Gaglardi,
sweet.
Harris.
This was spicy. This was
Real
hot.
hot pepper.
This wasn't
Time
like
for the big
No,
one.
no,
unfathomably.
Big
I'm gonna cry
Kahuna,
hot.
Yeah,
but
it
it
should've
stayed
been
in
on
my
it.
mouth
Should've
for
been
a
a ghost
while.
pepper.
Pledged by your fellow
And what's this?
Maverick
This is the
leaders.
$500 mark, huh?
Yeah, this is
It's
the
a-
big one.
What is the
Four.
lid say?
Dang.
No.
Now, who picked this
Yeah,
out?
really, we're
Worm.
gonna do a live worm.
What
and
is
then
that?
I Googled
My
it.
boy,
They could have, like,
one of my
parasites if you
favorite
don't cook it
kids
out.
of
So
all
we didn't
time,
wanna kill
potentially
Jake.
No,
favorite
yeah,
kid of
we
all
don't
We
time.
should make him suffer just a
Cameron
little bit.
Harjana.
Yeah. What's the
Pick
Pick
this
this out of
hashtag?
where?
Out of the
Hashtag
dirt,
make-
out of the
Make
dirt
progress
outside of
being a youth leader.
Buttercup.
Yeah.
straight up.
Now, and then they looked
Guys,
into it,
this is an
and then they thought,
earthworm,
you know
not
what?
just any earthworm,
We don't wanna
it's
give him
an
a parasite.
earthworm from the
So they
Garden
cooked
of
it for you.
Buttering.
They did.
Buttercup.
It's
real
Thank you.
nice, still
For
kind of
a
nasty,
sweet
huh?
little
Yeah.
boy named Cameron
I did not want to
Harjano.
eat this.
How you feeling right there?
I wasn't happy.
Oh, and you crunched it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it was so crunchy. It was
That
very
is
crunchy.
so gross.
So what's it taste like?
And so literally right after this, I had to clean up
Awesome.
and preach.
Well, Jake, good for you. If you said no to any of those things, then we would have judged you heavily for not caring about the youth.
I literally couldn't have said no.
So you were stuck in a position, and you
they were
stepped up
they
to
were
the challenge.
they were very kind to me.
Super
it wasn't
cool.
as gross as it could have been. I wasn't violently ill afterwards. I was a little sick, but I wasn't violently ill afterwards.
Yeah.
I have no parasites,
So all's good.
so
So worth it. Hey,
it
guys,
was so worth it.
thank you guys for joining us for the pre-service. Sorry that things got started a little late with the technical difficulties. We hope that the rest of the service runs smoothly for you and for us. Like a reminder, we are finishing up the first day's portion of our First Days, Last Days series today. It's going to be great. We've got some worship by the worship team.
Yeah.
We've got Catherine Tang leading us in worship for the last time this Sunday. She's leading on the violin or playing on the violin and then singing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. We're going to miss her immensely. So stay tuned for the whole service, and we look forward to engaging you throughout the service this morning. We love you. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
Have a great one.
Good job.
Hey, well, welcome everyone and good morning. Welcome to the Renew Church live stream. Before we kick into our service this morning, I have a whole bunch of things I want to tell you about. And we want to start off with what's happening next Sunday. It is Mother's Day, and if you were around with us last year, you know what that means. It's the second annual Mom Awards. Did I just make that annual? Is this an annual thing now? I guess so. So anyway, this year we're taking it up a notch. Last year we had you submit your moms to receive an award, mentioned and given a shout out on our live stream, but this year we want to take it up to a whole new level. We want you to submit a video somehow telling us, showing us what makes your mom the best. So get your creativity in high gear here. You need about 20 seconds of video to send to us, and we need to receive those by this Thursday so that we can get everything lined up and queued up and ready for a 9:30 premiere next Sunday morning. So all the details are on our website, and there are 5 Uber Eats gift cards up for grabs that you can win for your moms in 5 different categories. So go to our website, you'll see the Mom Awards tab, and you can get all the details there on what you need to do. Also, just a little bit earlier than that in this week, we have First Wednesday coming up on this Wednesday evening. If you've never attended a First Wednesday before, this is an online live stream that we do Wednesday evenings, the first one of every month at 8 o'clock, and it's a communion service. So we're going to spend some time celebrating and talking about what it means to celebrate communion and remember what Jesus did for us. So if you want to participate in that, you can watch, or you can have your communion elements with you, bread and cup, and you can participate right along with us. We have something else coming up very soon for the women in the church. We've got a women's group study called The Good Gospel. So this is based on a Right Now Media video series. We have a subscription to an online library of videos that you'll get access to watch this video series and then discuss this on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So this is starting on the 15th of May, and you can sign up on our website, and then you'll get the Zoom link to join in on that. Our youth are continuing in their series called Habits as part of our Maverick Youth program happening on Tuesday evenings at 6:30 in the evening. Now, if your kids are not on Maverick Youth, then you need to get them to kind of rewind this morning's service and check out what goes on. We had a pretty awesome display of what our youth leader Jake did for us. So have them tune in again this week and see what's happening on Maverick Youth. And another item that we've had, something that just took place a little while ago, was we had our mental health webinar, which was premiered on YouTube, but it's still there for on-demand viewing. So anytime you want to go back and watch that, if you missed it, you can check that out. Go to our website, go to our YouTube channel, and you'll find that there. Now, I want to also tell you about something pretty awesome that took place yesterday. It's pretty hard to believe, but we've just concluded our second year of GCBI North. And so we want to congratulate all the graduating students who just finished their year, and now they're ready to enjoy the summer and look ahead to what's next. But you can actually go online on our YouTube channel and watch the graduation service that took place yesterday. Another year in COVID meant that we had to do this online again, but it's a benefit to us as a church because we get to all participate in it, which is pretty awesome. So go check that out and maybe send out some messages to some of our graduating students and let them know that you've been rooting for them and praying for them this year and wish them the best going forward. Lastly, I want to reference what we announced last weekend, which was kind of good and sad news that the Reininger family are departing for Florida. They're returning to their roots in Florida, where they're going to be starting a new church plant, which is pretty amazing. So we want to give you some consistent updates going forward, and that's going to be happening on a weekly basis as much as possible. When there's news to share, we will share that with you. But the first kind of big touch point we have coming up is May the 16th. We are going to have an info and prayer night on Zoom that you can join in on, and so you can hear a little bit more about what the plans are going forward and what we're looking ahead to in Florida, which is very, very exciting. So mark that in your calendars. We will send out a Zoom invite by email. All right, lots and lots of stuff going on. If you want, specifics and dates and things on anything I just mentioned, just go over to our website, renewchurch.ca. You get all the details there. So now I'm going to pass it over to the band, and let's join together in worship.
Good morning, Renew Church. Thank you for tuning in and joining with us this morning. Why don't you join with us as we sing this morning about God's amazing grace? Who breaks the power of sin and darkness? Whose love is my cross, you laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King of glory, who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. And worthy is the King who conquered the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross. You laid down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me.
Good morning, and welcome to our series, First Days, Last Days. Today's scripture reading is the entire chapter of Mark, chapter 13. So please read along with me. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings." "Do you see all these great buildings?" replied Jesus. "Not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are all about to be fulfilled?" And Jesus said to them, "Watch out that no one deceives you. Many will come in my name, claiming, 'I am he,' and will deceive many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places, and famines. These are the beginning of birth pains. You must be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. On account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them, and the gospel must first be preached to all nations. Whenever you are arrested and brought to trial, do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given to you at the time, for it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. Everyone will hate you because of me, but the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. When you see the abomination that causes desolation standing where it does not belong, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetops go down or enter the house to take anything out. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that this will not take place in winter, because those will be days of distress, unequaled from the beginning, when God created the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If the Lord had not cut short those days, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect whom he has chosen, he has shortened them. At that time, if anyone says to you, "Look, here's the Messiah," or "Look, there he is," do not believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time. But in those days follow that distress. But in those days following that distress, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory, and he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heaven. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that it is near, right at the door. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, be alert. You do not know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows, or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to everyone, watch.
Well, the text you just heard from Pastor Mitch is found in the Gospel of Mark, which is actually the earliest written of the four gospel stories about Jesus. And it was written with the earliest dating sometime between 50 and 60 AD range, which is within a generation of Jesus' life, death, resurrection, and ascension. To set the stage a bit for that reading, Jesus, just before this proclamation to his disciples, he was up, just before he did this on the Mount of Olives, he was in the temple actually saying the very same thing, preaching this prophetic message to the Jewish leaders of his time. It was a message of impending doom. And that's what he's here reiterating to his disciples up on Mount Olives. Now, this was not a nice message, obviously. It was not welcomed by the Jewish ruling class. As Bartley mentioned last week, there were a few major competing expectations at play here in his audience when he was in the temple. The generally agreed upon expectation was that at a future point in time, Yahweh, Israel's God, would establish an earthly kingdom, an eternally lasting kingdom on earth, with Israel fully restored to the promised land in Jerusalem. That's what most of them expected. And this expectation comes from the Hebrew Scriptures, our Christian Old Testament, and primarily in some of the prophetic Psalms as well as in the prophets. Now, the division wasn't mostly on whether or not something like this would happen or whether or not it was promised to Israel. The major division was mostly derivative from the questions of how this would happen and what would the process look like in order for this to take place. Many people thought that this would look like Yahweh giving Israel a great warrior, a warrior like Messiah that would lead Israel's armies into battle against evil forces like the pagan Roman overlords. While others thought that this would be established by strategic partnership with some of these powers. There were groups like the Pharisees that thought perfect Torah observance, i.e. purity according to the Jewish laws, would force Yahweh's hand into sending his messianic savior. While there were other groups who just retreated from all the geopolitical considerations and they believed in kind of a spiritual Platonic kingdom that was totally separate from the physical world and all its politics. These were like the mystics, the Essenes who went out into the wilderness. There had been many messengers also before Jesus who were drumming up support for their messianic campaigns. Bartley talked about some of these in week 1. But none of these movements lasted. They all failed at their mission, and eventually their followers were disbanded. However, the longer Israel felt like this promised kingdom had yet been fulfilled, the more kind of tense things got in Israel. There was tension between one another, Jews alike, but because of their competing expectations. They would often blame one another for the state that they currently found themselves in. They would say things like, you guys are sucking up to the pagan, idolatrous, anti-God enemy, and that's the reason why God's withholding his blessing. And then some would look across the room and go, well, you guys don't realize that we're living in the abundance of the kingdom already. Stop messing with a good thing. That's like kind of what the Sadducees would say. Or some would look across and go, well, you guys made up all these rules that people have to follow, and now they can't follow it, and they're further condemned because nobody can live according to this law that you guys created. And then others would look across the room and go, you guys are being way too political about it. It's all about peace, love, and happiness, man. There weren't hippies back then, but similar temperament. That kind of stuff was constantly happening in Israel at this time. And all those competing desires or expectations were also fueled alongside a sinful, selfish ambition for power of the leaders of each camp, right? The leaders of each group or kind of each idea eventually wanted the power in the end. And so all of that is kind of mixed in to the tension and the dilemma in the first century. And at the same time, as all the internal tension, there was always external tension with the Roman overlords. If you know anything about the first century, it was that Rome was powerful, very powerful, and they were very mean, and they were as barbaric as they needed to be in order to maintain control over a really diverse population. They had conquered the whole known world, and in order to maintain control over them, they had to do whatever it took to maintain that control. You see, it was easier for Rome and cheaper for Rome to just kind of give you your space and worship your gods, but if you threatened them in any kind of way, they would remind you of who is boss, and they would tighten the screws, and it did not matter how you felt about it because they could. They had very little concern for your kind of cute religious beliefs and temple sacrifices. It was okay if it kind of went on, but the Romans had a pantheon of gods, and those gods were clearly on their side, is what they thought, right? They conquered the whole known world. So they didn't fear Israel's God in the least in any kind of way. This is the socio-political religious environment that Jesus comes on the scene in. He steps right into the middle of all of this that's happening. This is the ideological battleground that Jesus shares his good news for all people within. And this is the timing that Jesus preached the imminence of the long-awaited kingdom of Yahweh. But Jesus' version of the kingdom was quite contrary to his contemporaries, and his method of inaugurating this kingdom wasn't what many people actually expected. You see, rather than taking up swords and driving out the Romans with military might, Jesus said to his disciples, "Put down your swords." Rather than storing up all these treasures in the temple and to maybe buy your people's freedom in the future, Jesus said, look, sell all your possessions and give it to the poor. Take care of the orphans. That's why you have this wealth, is to take care of the people, the orphans and the widows. Rather than strict obedience to the law for the sake of merit, Jesus said, look, you should be obeying the law out of love. It should come from a place of love and selflessness, not to gain something, not to be a part of the club. Rather than enacting justice in the form of kind of an eye for an eye, Jesus said you should forgive your neighbor and you should show grace to all of those around you. Rather than escaping off to the wilderness in communities that are like-minded, living in peace like kind of monks, people out there, nobody's going to bother them, they're hidden, Jesus said, no, you should sit and eat with the greatest sinners in your society and just love them well. Be present with people, broken people. Rather than rejecting Roman taxes, right, which was a very Jewish conversation, look, we shouldn't be paying taxes to Rome, this money should stay here, it should go to the temple, constantly fighting about that, Jesus said, look, yes, the taxes are hefty, but just pay them peacefully. Give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Jesus is saying this to his Jewish contemporaries, and they really don't get what the kingdom is for and what it's all about. The contemporaries of Jesus lost sight of their purpose as a people. They lost sight of the promises that were given to them and the intention for those promises. They lost sight of their vocation as a blessing to the rest of the world, not as the center of the world. They were kind of too caught up in the political, military, economic power and control structures. And because of that, they were missing what the entire plan was for them all along. They were missing what God had chosen them for in the first place. And more than that, they were missing who the true enemy was. And because of this, things were going to get bad, really bad for the Jewish people. But Jesus goes on to tell his disciples, look, this is the beginning of the new way. This is bad stuff's going to happen, but it's the beginning of something new. Saying the way of the kingdom is the new way. The way of the kingdom that you've been waiting for as a Jewish people is a new way is coming, and it's beginning. And he says it's the birth pains. We read that in Mark 13. It was the birth pains was kind of the language and the metaphor he used there. But that assumes that there's a new birth to follow. And those who have been there for the labor and birth of a child, they understand this metaphor. We understand it all too well in our household because we just gave birth a couple months ago, well, my wife did, to our beautiful daughter, Adelina, and we did that from the comfort of our home. Now, we didn't do that with the choice of being in our home. It was because the time between birth pains and birth was too short to make it to the hospital. This is what happens too often as we read Jesus in the Bible from our 21st century lens and how we might apply it today without considering the primary context of what was happening with the Jews at the time. The back and forth sometimes when we're having this conversation is about the living and active nature of the biblical text, i.e., does God speak to us today through a plain reading of the Bible? And here at Renew, we would say an emphatic yes. God speaks to us directly through his living word, through a simple and plain reading of the scriptures. God, it's living and active, it's breathing, and we can learn about God from just reading it. And I don't know if you've had that experience, but I've had that experience. Just reading it feels like God's speaking to me because it's a living and active word. But what happens sometimes is that idea can find itself standing against kind of the historical and literary nature of the biblical text, i.e., it was written in a specific historical time period to a specific audience with specific cultural references in mind using contemporary literary devices. So for today's teaching, for the sake of today's teaching, it is important to note that Jesus' teaching in Mark 13 had primarily not entirely, but primarily to do with what was currently happening and what was imminent in the first century. By imminent, I mean expected to happen soon, like within their lifetime. That is not to downplay the potential meaning for us today as secondary hearers, and we'll see how it paints a clear picture for our role today if we read it from a first century lens. You'll understand this more clearly after seeing what played out historically within a generation of Jesus' prophecy in Mark 13, just like Jesus predicted within their lifetime, within a generation. In the next part of the series, we're actually going to focus on the last days. In other words, we're going to look at what we should expect to still happen as a church in the immediate or even long-term future. And Pastor Bartley will cover different expectations of the modern church based on different theological persuasions. But today, what we're looking at, specifically today, is what did happen. What did, in fact, happen in the time of the apostles, in the first days. What was happening when Paul was writing his letters to the churches that we have in our New Testament. We're going to look at that today. We're going to look at what came out of the infighting with the Jews. We're going to look at which prediction and method of kingdom inauguration, in fact, won out in the end. And in order to do that, we're going to do a history flyover from the death and resurrection of Jesus to the time where Christianity was established as the official religion of the entire Roman Empire. It's a fascinating time in history, and period in history. And we're going to kind of follow two histories. We're going to primarily follow the history of the Jews who rejected Jesus' gospel, Jesus' message, and his prophetic words. And then after that, we're going to look a little bit at what the people who actually believed and received Jesus as the Messiah, and what kind of happened to those two groups of people historically. So we'll start here with the Jewish flyover, the first 300-ish years. Starting in 33 AD, we see the tension that we described going on in the Jewish community. Now, during this time, they also continued building the second temple, the temple of Herod, and that is something that they were anticipating finishing because they believed once they finished this, they could start making proper sacrifices again to Yahweh, and that Yahweh, they believed that Yahweh dwelt in the temple like he did in the first temple with Solomon in the Holy of Holies. And so they believed once they finished this thing, once they purified this thing, Yahweh would come down and dwell with the people and therefore be on their side and protect them. So that's why there's this anticipation of finishing, and they're working hard to finish. Now, also in this time period, Jews are persecuting Christians for their blasphemy and their heresy. You see, many Jewish groups thought that Christians were actually causing more and more persecution for them because of their blasphemy, more and more exile for them, more and more condemnation from God because of their blasphemous beliefs. And so you see, the Jews are persecuting the Christians in this time period as well. Now, we jump to 64 AD. What we have here is actually the completion of the second temple in Jerusalem. Now, like I said, this is a monumental moment for the Jewish people. There are only two proper temples, and the first one got destroyed in the Babylonian exile, and they had been rebuilding this one ever since they were restored back to the land. Like we said, there were many kingdom hopes that were attached to the completion of this temple, the dwelling of Yahweh in the Holy of Holies in the temple, proper sacrifice and atonement for their sins, and also the belief that Yahweh, God, would now be on their side in any fight that they would have or wage against Rome. Anytime they wanted to kick out those who were forcing them into this kind of quasi-exile, God would be on their side to cast them out. That was the belief in the time. And so this is a monumental moment in the life of a first century Jew. But then we jump to 66 AD. What do we see happen? We see the first major Jewish revolt against Rome. This is just after the completion of the temple. The Jews thought, you know what, now we've done that, we're good, God's on our side, let's fight back and purify our land, get these pagans out of our land. And so in this revolt, thousands of Roman soldiers were just massacred all over Judea. They were looking to take full control of the promised land and kick all the Romans out. And so they did that. They caused a lot of strife, but they did it successfully for a period of time. Now, this all happened during the reign of the Roman Emperor Nero. And the belief was, because they did it successfully, this was God actually granting them victory, that this was something that they were succeeding at and that God was on board with. Well, if we jump to 67 AD, we see what is inevitable, which is the backlash from Rome. We see Nero. He sends Vespasian to crush the Jewish rebellion. Nero, the emperor, he sends one of his key commanders to crush the rebellion in Judea. Judea was a small but significant space in the first century. It was a strategic place for Rome, and so they wanted it back, obviously, and they easily took it back. They just went through towns and cities one by one. We're talking about one of the greatest empires in human history, right? Not much of a fight for Jerusalem, even if they believed Yahweh was on their side, which we'll see whether or not he was, but they just wiped it out. Now, they couldn't conquer Jerusalem because Jerusalem was a very fortified city. It's a very strong city. And so they were stuck not being able to conquer Jerusalem, but basically took almost everything else in the process. Now, then there was some stuff that was going on in Rome, and so some of these men were called back to Rome. Vespasian ended up becoming the new emperor of Rome because of all the drama that was happening. So there was a time period there where Rome really wasn't trying that hard to take back Jerusalem. But after all that, we jump to 69 AD, the Jews held off Jerusalem for a period of time, but then Rome said, you know what? We're taking this back again. And this was Titus, Vespasian's son, who was originally with him on the first conquering of the rest of Judea. He said, okay, my dad's the emperor now. I'm going to show him that I can do this. I'm going to take Jerusalem. So he takes his armies, and they march off to conquer Jerusalem. That's happening in 69 AD, like I said, under Titus. And what ended up happening was a 6 to 7 month siege around Rome. It wasn't as easy as they thought. It wasn't just Roman armies, tens of thousands of soldiers come, take it easily. It was a lot harder than they anticipated. And so they created this siege, a 6 to 7 to 8 month siege around the city of Jerusalem. Now, the Jewish armies were strong in number and spirit. And like I said, the walls were fortified. But what happens in a siege is that basically you cut off the city from everything outside of the city. And so what ends up happening after not too long is that the resources of the Roman Empire were so vast that they dried up the food supplies, the Jewish fighters were worn down, and eventually things came to an end for Jerusalem. Jumping to 70 AD, Jerusalem ended up falling to Rome in 70 AD. Jerusalem held out and eventually lost out. Now, the temple had just been finished 6 years earlier and was totally and utterly destroyed at this point. It was ransacked down to every last stone. We have some pictures here of some art of what happened, and this is 70 AD. This is the destruction of the temple and the taking over of Jerusalem by Rome, and it was devastating. The whole city lit on fire. We're talking estimates between 600,000 and 1.1 million Jews lost their life. Civilians, women, children dying from disease, starvation, from just massacre. It's really, really, really bloody history when you read it. And if you consider each of these stories as unique individual stories, it's just devastating. Now, the Romans, like we said, they weren't known for their mercy. They weren't known for their mercy. You see in this depiction here, they just stormed the temple and took whoever they want and whatever they want. They had been fighting this war for months. So this was like their reward, and they just had at it. It was not good. This is known as the First Jewish-Roman War. And like I said, it was devastating. It was a major turning point in Israel's history, even more significantly than the destruction of the first temple. Because almost all Messianic hope was kind of bound in the completion of the second temple, at least for some of the primary sects of Judaism. All that hope was dashed in a devastating fashion, far more gruesome than, like I said, history could even possibly describe. And then we jump to the period of 70 to kind of 132 AD. There's still many Jews around in diaspora and still in the cities. They still live there. They still exist there all over Judea and all through the Roman Empire. And tensions continue to grow, right? This doesn't help the cause. This doesn't help the political connection between Rome and Jerusalem and Judea. It was bad. So tensions grow between the Jews and the Romans through this time period. There were more kind of rebellions, more things sparked up. There was kind of what some consider the Kiddo Wars, which is the second Jewish-Roman Wars, which was a bunch of little things that kind of happened in and around Judea and the Roman Empire. There's more rebellions that gain traction all over the empire, but over and over and over again, they end in the total devastation. Over and over and over again, it doesn't end up well for the Jewish people. There's no long-lasting benefit for them. And this is the reason, leading up to this is the season where we have the Bar Kokhba revolt, which is known as kind of the third Jewish-Roman war. This is a depiction of him. He was a leader who led rebel forces under his leadership to drive out the Roman forces in Jerusalem. And he did this successfully and drove them out of all sorts of Judean cities and towns. And so this was a very strong revolt, and people were considering Bar Kokhba as a potentially messianic figure because he finally drove the Romans out and did successfully this time. And they were actually able to hold them off for long enough to establish an independent state in Judea, an independent kind of nation state with their full control. And so again, people are like, okay, this is the moment. We've got it back. We've got our land. Bar Kokhba is the Messiah that God sent to restore to the land. And then, like we've seen before and we're going to see again, the Romans came back with a vengeance. Close to 1,000 towns and villages were totally wiped out. Almost 600,000 more Jewish deaths. The Romans secured control over Jerusalem once again, over all of Judea. But this time, they barred Jews and Christians from the holy city all together. And they didn't quite return to proper ownership of the land until 1948, but we won't go into that history because it's very complex geopolitics, and there still is today. So that's the Jewish history, post Jesus' death and resurrection, post his prophecy. That's what actually happened. The Christians, on the other hand, they took a different approach. In the same time frame, you have the ongoing persecution of the church, both by Jews and Gentiles. Pastor Wade actually talked about the persecution of the apostles and all of their martyrdom. Under Emperor Nero, for example, the Christians were set on fire for entertainment. So Christians were rejected by their Jewish brothers as well as they were rejected by the Romans. They were rejected by their Jewish brothers because they followed Jesus' instruction to actually flee from fighting like we saw in Mark 13. And the Jews blamed them for running away from the battle. And then the Romans were treating them just like the Jewish cult. They were saying, you guys are all the same people. You're all causing the same issues. And so we're going to persecute you the same. Especially because the Christians profess Jesus as king. Not whoever the current Roman emperor was at the time. This did not get them in the good books with the Romans, and they were definitely not in the good books with the Jews. However, the Christian movement was a grassroots movement. They preached the gospel, one Jew, one Gentile at a time. They had a call to nonviolence from Jesus. There was a persistent call for unity in the church. When you read Paul's letters, right, he's talking about unity because disunity plagued the Jews and the Gentile power structures, and the Christians were reminded over and over again, pursue unity over all else. They established underground communities and kind of small outposts in each city and township, and they sent missionaries from those small outposts all over the world, and they did so at whatever the cost. The Christians were non-discriminatory in their message. They preached an inclusive message to Jew and Gentile, free or slave person, man or woman, rich or poor, healthy or sick. This message was for everyone. It was an inclusive, non-discriminatory message. And in the time that the Jews ignored Jesus' messianic message, they fought and they lost countless battles, costing millions of lives in a devastating fashion. And that happened just as Jesus predicted it would happen. All the while, the Christian movement, who was still persecuted nonstop, they were equipped with the message from Jesus of peace and unity, and they grew in influence and size over that same time period. So much so that within 300 years of Jesus' death and resurrection, Christianity, coming out of the Jewish cult, according to Romans, Christianity became the primary faith across the entire Roman Empire within 300 years. It became the official religion of the state. And it has been the most influential movement in all of human history ever since. Today, Christianity still stands as the world's largest religion. Now, I'll add a caveat. The Christian church has done very bad stuff in the name of fleshly kingdom efforts. This is true. You can read that in your history books. The church has failed in all sorts of ways, in all almost the same ways that Israel failed when they lost sight of their true kingdom calling and purpose. We are not immune to losing sight of that. But for the sake of today's teaching, let's set that reality, that history aside. Here's one of the keys to the Christian success over and above the Jewish efforts in the first few centuries. Jews, for a long time, they lost sight of who the true enemy was. And therefore, what the true Savior would come rescue them from. To Jews, the enemy was a person or political power or figure that was getting in the way of their physical kingdom in the promised land. To Jews, the focus was on earthly kingdoms and enemies. To Jews, the enemy was Rome and their pagan gods and goddesses. And if it wasn't Rome, it was Babylon from the first exile. Or if it wasn't Babylon, it would have been the Muslim Ottoman Empire in many years later. That's the mindset that they had. But the message of Jesus all along was that the true enemy isn't Rome, it wasn't really Babylon, and it wouldn't eventually be the Ottoman Empire. The true enemy all along was sin. Personal, internal sin. Now, it outworked in politics and power structures and ideologies and oppression. That is true, but the primary enemy was sin. The flesh. The selfish desire of the individual, the evil elements of a person, the spiritual forces that are battling over the hearts and minds of people. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, Ephesians 6:12. And therefore, the kingdom was and is, first and foremost, a submission to Jesus as king over the individual life. The personal choice, the willful obedience to Jesus in mind and body and spirit. The kingdom would be, therefore, when and where the person walks with the Spirit of God and faithfully obeys the ways of Jesus and dies to the selfish, sinful flesh and becomes a new creation by faith in Jesus and following his ways. That's in 2 Corinthians 5:17. The true kingdom is where the person follows the rules out of love rather than merit or to qualify themselves. You see the Beatitudes in Matthew 5-7. The kingdom is where the person gets at the heart of the struggle rather than just addressing the outward behavioral choices. This kingdom, the kingdom of God with King Jesus reigning on the throne, is a reality that has been inaugurated. The resurrection was the sign of this kingdom being accessible to all people, and the destruction of the temple was the hard evidence, particularly to Jews, that the old way, the old covenant, was officially over. The destruction of their temple was the vindication of the message of Jesus, the confirmation of his prophecy in Mark chapter 13 and elsewhere. The validation of this message, the proof that this was, in fact, what God was doing all along. And here's the reality that we live in today, 2,000-ish years later. We are still fighting the fight. The battle still wages. We await the full consummation of the kingdom. We still await that. We wait the full return of Christ. We still wait for that. Because Christ will make all things right for the rest of history at a future point in time. That's what the gospel message is. That's the hope. That's the anticipation. And it was for them, and it also is for us. Today was history heavy, and it was application light, but we always need to bring things back to, so what does this mean for me in my life? One, what does this mean for you and your life? The primary battle that you fight is not external, but it's internal. That is true of you in the same way it was true of first century Jews, first century pagan Romans. Your enemy is not your spouse or your kids and their bad choices. It's primarily your lack of love and selfless care. Your fight is not primarily with political figures and their flawed policies. It's with the world of internally held ideas that are sweeping people away from truth. Your war is not against your boss or your colleague. It's actually with your own selfish ambition. The race that you want to win isn't the rat race. It's actually the good race towards selfless obedience and faithfulness. That's the race you want to be running. Other religions or nationalities are not meant to be your opposition. They are the world that Jesus died for, and he offers them the same hope. This is not to downplay the role of politics in our life, nor is it to suggest that we should agree with bad policies that end up hurting people. That's not what I'm saying. But Israel's primary failure was forgetting who the true enemy was, and therefore engaging in fights that they were never intended to engage in, with weapons that God did not want them to bear. The battle begins with the war over your own heart. And the primary combatant is actually Satan and the dominion that he wants over your life. That's the Christian worldview. The fight is against your own flesh, not your physical body, but your sinful nature, the part of you that keeps doing what you know you shouldn't do and can't seem to establish a routine in the simple and good stuff you know you should do. That's the battle. That's the war that continues to wage. And everyone around you, they're just broken people affected by sin without the ability to overcome the true enemy, which is actually the sinful part of themselves, just like you. Don't make the same mistake Israel made. You are called to give your life for the sake of bringing light to the world. That's it. That's what Israel was called for. That was their vocation. That was their responsibility. And any distraction to bringing the light to the world is actually a true enemy of ours. Anything that gets in the way of bringing light, the light of God, to the world is what we should be fighting against. The weapons, the second application, is that the weapons we fight with are expressions of love. They're not swords. Paul continues in Ephesians 6. We read a little bit of it earlier. He continues it in Ephesians 6. He tells us what the true weapons are for the church. And again, this is in contrast to the Jewish call to take up arms and fight alongside them. He says this, stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all flaming arrows of the evil one. You take on the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Littered across the New Testament is language just like this. The constant question in the first century Christians was, and the ones who had a Jewish worldview background, was whether or not they were supposed to fight with a sword, whether or not they were called to drive out the pagans with force. And the constant reminder over and over and over and over again, all throughout the New Testament writers, was no, it's not how we fight. We fight with love. This is how we fight. We be the best husband in our community. We be a great father who loves our kids and raises them the right way. That's how we fight. We be a great contributor to our friend groups, an encouragement to them. We be the first to serve those in need. We be slow to speak in a room of people or on social media. We invite people into our home and we actually eat with them. We remain sexually pure of mind and body. We break addictions to porn and we stay faithful to our spouse. That's how we fight. That's how Christians fight. We consider our resources as belonging to God. We give generously to the work of the local church. We're modest in our spending. We're not wasteful or hedonistic. That's how we fight. We're the most committed person in our workplace. We work the hardest, harder than anyone on our team. And we forgive people quickly. We don't hold grudges. We overcome our addictions, and then we help others overcome their addictions. We actually enter into people's pain. We don't avoid them. We enter into their pain, and we pray alongside them. That's how we fight. That is how Christians fight. We gently and kindly tell people about the same gospel that you and I have accepted as true and beneficial. That is our weapon. And this is how the kingdom of God was to be built. This is the means to Jesus' kingdom growing. Steady, faithful, patient obedience to Christ. A lot of theologians wrestle with the concept of kingdom of God and our part in building it. And some of the questions are, do we actively build it by fighting against injustice and overturning power structures? Or do we actively build it by establishing kind of moral laws and forcing people to live the ways of Jesus? Or do we actively build the kingdom by telling people and leading them to the Lord's Prayer and salvation? Is that what building the kingdom is? And maybe this is a simple take, but sometimes simplicity is profound. Here's the take for this morning. Take it or leave it. God builds his kingdom. You and I don't. And God will continue to build his kingdom. If it's God's kingdom, and he's an active God, he's building his own kingdom. And according to Jesus' prayer that he modeled for us, God does bring his kingdom down on earth as it is in heaven. That's what we're supposed to ask for. But the active builder is God. It's always been God. We play an active role, but our role is faithful obedience to Christ, period, in all things. Our role isn't to tell God what his kingdom is supposed to look like or to then forge ahead when we don't see God listening to our demands. Our role isn't to jump on every social justice movement and yell at everybody else who isn't on the train yet in the name of Jesus. That's not our role. Our role isn't to get as many people to say a simple prayer as we can in our lifetime, then pat ourselves on the back. That's not our primary role. Our primary role isn't to enroll in national defense organizations and fight the enemy to maintain kingdom of freedom and prosperity. That is not our role. Our role as Christians is faithful obedience to Christ in everything. Steady, patient, humble, peaceful, faithful obedience to Christ and what he's called us to take on today. Steady, patient, humble obedience in order to overcome sin in our own life. Steady, patient, humble obedience to say what's true when the opportunity arises. Steady, patient, humble, faithful obedience to Christ in all things. And he will build his kingdom his way through our obedience in his time. Every generation has their day. And guys, ours is today. And we're called to the same things that Jesus called his first disciples to. And the same lifestyle that the church has been called to ever since. And we do this when we patiently anticipate the fullness of God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. And we do this with patient anticipation of the bodily return of our Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
heart longing for our King. We sing like a bride waiting for her groom. We'll be a church ready for you. Every heart longing for our King. We sing, even so, come, Lord Jesus, come. no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God, yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, you're coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. And oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. And I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Thanks for all the heavy lifting on today's message, Andrew. That was a ton of stuff to cram into one message. There was a lot of history to go through. And I know for you guys watching at home, it probably felt like a lot to go through, but I hope we all kind of saw the importance of where you brought it to, which I thought was really great. That all of that provides so much context and for everything, for the Gospels, and seeing what those expectations were people had, and then how Jesus came on the scene, and even giving that prophecy he gave that we read in Mark, and just all that kind of there, but then ultimately he dies for personal sin, and that's kind of where you brought it to, being about sin, and then seeing where the rest of the New Testament takes it, when we see the letters of Paul and Peter and John and all these guys, and that's what they're talking about, right? It's not it's not that big war against the oppressive Roman Empire. It's about our own individual lives and individual sins. So it's pretty eye-opening when you think about it that way.
Yeah, and to me, when I was studying it and thinking about the destruction of the temple as being the confirmation that was true, to the Jews that would have been the confirmation, or at least Jews that were on the fence about what Jesus was saying versus what their Jewish contemporary leaders were saying, that would have been confirmation. Right. It happened exactly as Jesus said it would happen, and now it's like, well, what was right in the end, right? The Christian movement actually birthed and grew and thrived, and the other way of thinking and the other way of doing things didn't go that well.
Yeah. And I've been thinking about it too. Like, we've done a few reading plans in our Renew group, and I actually just made a comment at the end of the day that, I've kind of focused on what have the epistle writers, primarily Paul, what's the main thing he keeps kind of saying to people, and it always comes back to that just personal holiness, that personal obedience. And I love the way you put it. You used a few words there: a steady, patient, humble obedience. I thought that was
and unity. That's the thing. You could push it
unity,
and you're like, okay, good, but it makes sense in the light of the context. Right. Oh, that's why. Right. Because of all the disunity. He's saying, no, stick with being obedient and doing the right thing, fighting against your own temptation and your own flesh, which is what he says over and over again, and be unified together. Just be on the same team. That's what's going to work. Yeah.
And so, on that topic, guys, there's lots of, of course, questions and things we wrestle through when we read a scripture like this. And if this is all kind of new to you, it's even that much more overwhelming. But we want you guys to know that we are here. We're here to help you, kind of guide you through that journey, whatever stage of the journey you're at. We've got all kinds of ways of doing that, whether it's introductory classes or Renew groups, communities of believers who are now meeting right now online, and other classes. And we've got lots of stuff in the works, and you heard some of that stuff even in the announcements today. So we want to encourage you to go online and fill out our online Connect card. It's at renewchurch.ca/connect. And that's just a place where you can reach out to us and just get in touch. Let us know where you're at and where you're hoping to get to, or what questions you have. And one of our pastors will respond and help get you connected with the things that we think will help you the most.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today for our service so far. We're going to close it out with one more song, and then we'll wrap it up with some post stuff at the end. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, good to have you guys.
Worship with us.
Yes, as Pastor Andrew just said, we are going to close with a song, and it's a song that I feel like we haven't sung for a few months, but it's a song that I just thought was a great reminder as we finish our service and go out into the week, because it talks about the fact that God never fails, and that in the highs and the lows of life that we can count on him, and we know that he is for us and he's worthy of our praise no matter what the circumstances may be in our life. So why don't you sing with us?
1, 2, 3.
I count on one thing: the same God that never fails will not fail me now. You won't fail me now in the waiting.
Thank you so much for joining us this week, Renew Church. It really has been such a pleasure to worship with you and to serve alongside everyone at the studio these past few months. I hope you have a great day and a great week.
Whoa. Hey, Catherine's going to come join us. Catherine's going to come on over here, Catherine. Like Catherine said, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for connecting with us online. Thank you for tuning in and paying attention and singing along with us and being unified as a church as much as we can. Lee, thank you for engaging with us. And Catherine, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking a risk and being here this last year. You made a decision last year to come out here, and you didn't really know anybody. You only knew a few people's experience out here. You're coming to a pretty foreign place to you to spend time with a bunch of weird people. And how does it feel now that you're at the end of that journey, turning back?
It's definitely been not really what I expected. We kind of lost a few people along the way at the house. We started with, I think, 7, and we ended up with only 5 of us. But it's been really, really good, and I've really enjoyed everything that I've done here, especially during COVID. I feel like it's still been so fulfilling, and we've been able to do so much.
Yeah, what will you miss the most about being here in this area with us, but in this area? What will you miss the most, other than the people, yada, yada, yada?
I'll really miss the worship. It's been a lot of fun to just do that every week or around every week, and yeah.
And what are you looking forward to? What's next for you? Like, people may not know. What's next for you out in
So
Vancouver?
I'll be going back
Surrey.
home today, actually, around like 5 o'clock.
What?
Yeah. But then in the fall, I'll be going to the University of Victoria for science, and I hope to transfer into kinesiology for second year.
Wow,
So,
that's fun. That's really cool. I actually wanted to, when I was in grade 11, took a kinesiology course, and I thought, you know what, I'd love to do kinesiology and sports science, and then I didn't. What are your aspirations? What do you want to do with that?
Currently, I want to be a physiotherapist.
Cool.
I'm not sure.
Dave Ross, hire her in 4 years.
I'm not sure if that'll still be my plan in a few years, but right now that's something that I'm really interested in. So.
I think it's really cool that you took a gap year, too, to going and doing that. What led to that decision to spend a year studying the Bible instead of going right into university like most young adults end up doing?
Yeah, last February, I think Mitch came to Vancouver, and he met with me and Thomas, who's actually coming to GCBI next year.
Cool.
And he was telling us about the program, and I remember telling my parents that before. I was like, I'm going to go to the meeting, but, I'm not going. I'm just going to go to university. And then we had the meeting, and then I was like, actually, maybe I should go. And then I was sort of, on the fence about it, not really sure if it was, the wisest thing to do, take a year off school. But then with the pandemic, I guess, and then school would be online, and I didn't really want to spend my first year of university in my bedroom doing classes on Zoom, and I was like, well, why not? And this is probably it was probably the best time for me to come do this, because I don't know, it would be probably harder to take a year in between years of university or do it after. So
how would you encourage, I'm putting you on the spot here, but how would you encourage somebody who's out there, who's a young adult, who's thinking about obviously graduate high school, go off to university, because that's what I'm told to do, especially here in Canada, and they were thinking, somebody said, hey, have you thought about doing GCBI for a year before doing that? Would you have any encouragement to them, because they might think that would set me behind, that would be, I would lose out on this experience with all these friends, yada, yada. What is some encouragement that you would add to them to think in the side of taking a year off to study the Bible?
I would say that taking the year off school has actually made me more excited to go back to school. I was very academic in high school, and I kind of was very involved in that. But taking the year off is actually kind of giving me the chance to sort of reset and then say, next year I'm actually really excited to go learn. And I think you'll make friends anywhere you go. It's not really that big a worry, and I think the community that you experience here is something that you're probably not going to have a chance to experience. Even in a university dorm, it's not the same as living in a house with all these people and sharing your life with them for 8 months. So.
Yeah. It's Mother's Day next week.
Yes.
And we're doing the Mom Awards, and maybe your mom's watching. Mm-hmm. Do you want to give your mom an award right now?
Yes. My mom is, I'd say she's one of the most, she's very steady. She really holds my family together. She takes care of everyone, runs everyone's lives organizes everyone's lives. And I know, like, I called her like about a month ago, and I was like, Mom, can you please do my taxes? And she was like, well, I'm already doing like 2 other people's taxes, so why not?
Right.
And so she just really like takes care of everyone, and so that's something I really admire about her.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a great mom award. Look at that. Submit a video. You maybe will win an award. I want to remind you guys, Mom Awards coming up next Sunday, and we need submissions by Thursday, I think is what Merrick said, right? 20-second videos celebrating your mom. I said, actually, my wife texted me, she's like, you said celebrate moms like they deserve, to be loved, and they'll feel like that. But I made it sound like moms don't deserve to be loved all the time and celebrated. And my point is, they deserve it, not just next week, not just on Sunday for the Mom Awards. Your mom deserves your love and celebration all the time.
Yes.
But we take a day a year to actually really celebrate it. So do not be the person who doesn't celebrate your mom next Sunday. Yeah. Send videos, make them, send it to us at media@renewchurch.ca, or submit them online on the form that we've actually created, and we would love to get all that rolling. That's exciting. There's so much stuff coming up. I'm not even going to highlight all of it. You've already seen it all. It's previous in the service. We'll cut out the announcements, and we'll post it later for you so that you guys can see that. Any last parting words for Renewed Church, for your friend Elizabeth sitting over here, who's been a big part of your life the last year? Any last parting words that you want to encourage people with?
I mean, I haven't really gotten a chance to meet a lot of you
Crazy,
at
right?
the church, but I will miss seeing you on the live stream, and I wanted to thank Elizabeth because she's really been a really good friend, and she's also she really helped me a lot when I led worship last week. She really walked me through the whole process and was like with me every step of the way. So yeah, and I'll miss her a lot.
She's a gem.
Yes,
Hey, while I
she
have you
is.
here, there's been all this talk about perfect pitch. What does that mean? Because everyone, Catherine has perfect pitch. I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Perfect pitch is basically I can like recognize what note you sing or I hear. It doesn't necessarily have to be singing.
Okay. Ready? Go. Ah.
C sharp.
That's amazing. That's pretty amazing.
I could be.
So you could
I'd be
literally,
lying.
like those guitar tuners that you buy and you put on the top of your guitar,
Yeah.
and tells you could be a
I
guitar
could do
tuner.
that. I mean, with the violin, I don't use a tuner. You like tune the strings together until they sound good
Oh,
together.
interesting.
But yeah, I can tune a guitar without a tuner.
It's amazing. This whole time, this magical gift of how many people is this rare or common?
It's pretty common.
1%?
Oh,
Apparently it's
Oh.
rare. Does Elizabeth have perfect pitch? No.
I guess I grew up in very
Child prodigy.
musical circles, so I
Oh.
guess it's more common. But
You're
my
like
mom
an
has,
elite.
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom has perfect pitch.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah, but honestly, sometimes it's not super useful because sometimes I hear like a worship song that we're playing. I hear it in the key that they do in the recording, and then we're playing in a different key in the service, and then I like get confused and like I've like started singing in the wrong key before I start playing in the wrong key.
Huh.
So sometimes it's not
Sometimes it messes you up.
messes you up. Yeah.
Well, it's better than not having any pitch. Me. Thank you for being here and serving our church for all this time, even though it was on the internet and you didn't actually get to hang out with people. People were blessed by it. All sorts of positive feedback about you and about your gifts and about your using them to serve our church. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for taking a risk and coming out here and sticking around when people were kind of dropping off like flies. You stuck around, you committed, you stepped up, and I think that was phenomenal. I'm inspired by it. So we're going to miss you a lot.
Yeah,
All
I'll miss
right.
you guys too.
You guys can send, not Elizabeth, Catherine, your love. You can send Elizabeth your love too, but you can send it to Catherine on Facebook if you have her. You can follow her on Instagram, I assume.
Yeah.
Your places where people can follow you and follow the rest of her journey and support her because God's got some big things with her life. Anyway, thanks for joining us. Next week is Mother's Day, Mom Awards, plus a Mother's Day message. And then following that week, we're going to continue our First Days Last series with the Last Days portion of our series, which should be interesting.
Exciting.
All right. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.